Good afternoon. Good National Championship Monday. I almost said Sunday. I actually said Sunday earlier because I don't know what day it is, but good National Championship Monday. Thank you for joining. Welcome to College Football with Ethan and Heather. That's what we're going to say it is today because Ethan is my co-host extraordinaire, and Ethan, we'll get the introductions out of the way so we could jump right into this. So everyone, please don't forget to follow me if you're not on X at Love Buckeyes. Follow us on YouTube at Bougie Sports. Check us out online at bougiesports.net. Ethan, tell us where we can find you because you do some pretty awesome stuff over.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Heather. You do as well. Thank you for having me on. Again, so glad to be here talking national championship, college football playoffs. You can follow me on X at egreen4325. You can also follow my podcast at Going Nuclear CLE. Take a look there below on the screen. And then I am part of the Going Nuclear is part of the Fanatical Elves Network, a subsidiary of Fans First Sports Network, with lots of great things going on there and lots of great things to come. Wink, wink.
Yes, we'll leave it at that.
Yes.
So let's get right into it. Let's just get right into it because it is the day that we've all been waiting for. And, it's the day that maybe some people are dreading because their team isn't in it. We can say that because it's been this way for the last 10 years. It's been 10 years since Ohio State's been really relevant in this game because we know that we were there with Alabama the year of that the world changed. We're not going to bring that up. But Ethan, how do you feel? Let's just get right into it right now. How do you feel about this game today as an Ohio State fan, but also as just a college football fan?
All right. So as an Ohio State fan, it is a nervous energy. It is you feel good about it, but there's that lingering little bit of doubt that you have in your mind because we've seen Ohio State beat itself. And we'll get to that down the road as we discuss, but I think that's going to be their biggest opponent is themselves. In terms of the college football landscape and where I am as a college football fan, this is fantastic. I know that the first round games didn't turn out great. The teams that got buys, automatic buys into the second round, such as, Boise State, it didn't. I think that needs to be tweaked a little bit. But ultimately, this playoff is fantastic. It gives everybody an opportunity. Whereas in the past, before even in the 4-team and before the 4-team, when it was just the BCS.
Right. We've lived through the BCS misery. So
right. If you had a loss like Ohio State did to Michigan in the last week, and then you don't play for the conference championship, you're toast.
Right. You were done.
You were done. So this is a fantastic new world we're living in here, and it will come together. It will get tweaked. I mean, if you look at it, Heather, we're what? The 7 and 8 seed.
The 7 and 8 seed. Yeah, it's the 7 and 8 seed. Yeah, seeds, not ranked seeds.
Right, exactly. So the top 4 didn't even make it in. It's ended up being the 7 and 8 seeds, and it's just been fascinating. It's been fantastic football. It's kind of a shame that they're playing it that they continue to do the national championships on a Monday night. I was just commenting to people, remember back in 2003 when we played on January 3rd, the Fiesta Bowl on a Friday night?
On a Friday night. It was a Friday night because I had all day to recover on Saturday, and I actually needed it.
Yeah, and then we had Sunday to be angry and miserable about Kelly Holcomb and Dennis Northcutt, for the Browns.
We did. It was like the perfect, but we weren't as miserable because, a win fixes everything. That's the thing. Like when I like college football season because when Ohio State wins, it's not as bad, for the Browns because we expect the Browns to win. It's when they both lose that it starts to tank it for me.
Yeah.
I have to, Hank in Akron. I love him. If you guys don't know him, give him a follow, but I'm wearing the dress. And I got the boots on too. So I'm completing the look today. Like I'm doing my part. I'm doing my part for this. And he also said, totally agree, but we can't fan scared. I think we boat race them. I think we're not fanning scared. I think we're fanning pragmatically because, yeah, while I do think that we're going to win, anything can happen. Anybody can win in one game. That's the thing. Like that's where these, the series games go in like the NBA, how the NBA does it, or how baseball does it, where you have the best of 7 or the best of 5. Because if you look at, the NCAA March Madness tournament, you get these magic upsets. And I promise you that if they played 10 times, the right team would win 9 out of 10 times.
Yeah, it's the beauty of football and the way it is.
Right.
As we just alluded to, talking about the national championship of the 2002 season, January 3rd, 2003, Miami was heavily favored. And,
yeah.
And I mean, the defense of Ohio State showed up there. Obviously, a horrific injury to Frank Gore.
That was really bad.
It was really bad. But thankfully, they had Ken Dorsey at quarterback. And we all know how much we love Ken Dorsey in this town. Thank you. He'll forever be in our hearts as Buckeye fans, not so much as Browns fans, but Buckeye fans. Anyway, I think that this has been a fantastic football season. The new 12-team playoff has been a great opportunity, as much as it kind of is. It's going to need to be tweaked. I guess that's the bottom line. It needs to be tweaked. But
we can talk about that. And guys, also give the Ohio podcast a follow too. I'm going to be on their show February 16th. So give them a follow. And Natty season 28-17. That's about what I've heard. But before we get into that, actually, Ethan, that's a really good segue. Let's talk about like the tweaking of this. So I talked about this with my podcast last week. What do you do? What do you do in this scenario? Because I think the way it worked this year, it worked in regards to the right teams getting in to the playoffs, just based on how they performed in the regular season. They took care of the business that they needed to take care of. But I don't love the fact that conference champs now get an automatic bye. I don't think that piece of it worked. So what do you think? Do you think that they should tweak that they should change that? Should they go by rankings only, or should they still go by seedings?
All right. So the first and foremost, I would have to argue, I've heard this elsewhere, so I'm not the first one to originate this. Conference championship games need to go out the window. Okay.
I agree.
Because what does it do? It makes you play an extra game. And like Penn State, they had to play an extra game in the conference championship. It could have benefited them. They lost, but then they didn't even get that extra week break. So Ohio State didn't play in the conference championship, still made it into the playoff, had that week off. We saw all 4 teams that received a bye lose in the quarterfinals. The issue is this. Just because the team wins there, if you're going to keep, even if you keep the conference championships, just because you win the conference championship shouldn't mean you get an automatic bye or get that bye. You should be in. You should earn a bid into the playoffs.
You should be in. But not the bye. I completely agree. And you have that now. There are, you brought up Ohio State. That was but Notre Dame is a really good example because they're not in a conference. So they're never going to win that conference championship. They're never going to get that bye. Excuse me, that actually served them though, because they had a relatively smooth run into this. Now, Georgia, hindsight's 2020, right? Looking at it, you say, okay, they didn't have the easiest path to get into it. I'm still standing on the Penn State had the easiest path to get in there, but that's unfair. That's unfair. It actually should have been. I think that Notre Dame was probably a better team. And, perhaps a Notre Dame should have had an easier path. Oregon didn't have an easy path. Ohio State had a really hard path.
Right. And I think that, for what it's worth, you get in and you got to play. It's like the March Madness. They try to put teams at the 1 seed and at the whatever it is. And sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't.
Sometimes it doesn't. Yeah.
Styles make fights, right?
Yeah.
You're right. Ohio State did not get the easiest path. Penn State. So who'd they play first? They played. They started out with SMU. And they cleaned their clock.
They did. They boat raced them.
They did.
They won. Where is it at? I have it here. They I thought I had it here. They won like 38-10 or something like that.
Right.
They boat raced them.
Right. And then next up, they played Boise State.
Correct. They boat raced Boise State.
I love Boise State, but they were outmanned. They were out. That's just the nature of the beast. It's hard. It is very difficult. These teams are now playing in this tournament where you're seeing teams that are at the highest level and teams that are not quite there. They're very good, but when the other opponents, the other teams they play are on a different level and they're beating the tar out of them. And it's like, who was it? The former president of Ohio State saying they were playing what, the Little Sisters of the Poor?
Yeah, it was that was against TCU. That was against TCU. Yeah, they were, and then it wasn't Ohio State playing them, but they said they were playing the Little Sisters of the Poor. And I think that's an analogy that we'll always remember because when you get more than 4 teams, more than even 6 teams, I think you're getting a lot of separation from that top level because there just is. There's a lot of separation. But again, it goes back to anybody can beat anybody one time. But still, I think that the way that it worked, I think it was fundamentally sound in the sense that the teams that should have got in. And there's the argument about Alabama. There's the argument about South Carolina. But I still stand on the take care of your business during the regular season. Alabama, had they not gotten, again, boat raced by Oklahoma, they would have been in. They would have been.
And Miami, they screwed the pooch. Miami could have been in, but they screwed the pooch. And then Arizona State earned their way in.
Yes, they did.
And they played great. So if we look at it.
Actually, Arizona State had the best second round game of all of them. They took Texas into 2 overtimes.
They did.
That argument that they shouldn't have been in there was weak. That was a weak argument because Arizona State played Texas tough. And it had it not been for that, in my opinion, missed targeting call at the end, Arizona State would have won.
They had a very good opportunity, at least, to keep that drive going and potentially win. It was a heck of a fight, and you really have to appreciate it. But Heather, so we talked about the ranking seedings, who got in, who didn't get in. So if we look at it, in the top 12, you had Oregon 1, Georgia 2.
Georgia 2.
It was unfortunate for them. They suffered that fate of having their quarterback.
Well, but I still think that Beck is a little bit overrated anyway.
Right. Then you had Texas 3, Penn State 4, Notre Dame gets 5, Ohio State 6, Tennessee 7, Indiana 8, Boise State 9, SMU 10, Bama is 11, Arizona State 12. And then the only team that jumped in and bumped Alabama out is Clemson.
It's Clemson because they won the conference. Right. So again, that's where it goes. Like that's Clemson.
Well, so let's picture this. If they had done it based upon the rankings and you give those first 4 teams a bye, right? You get Oregon with the bye, Oregon, Georgia, Texas, Penn State buys.
Right.
Then you would have had, so assuming, I guess what would it have been? Clemson would have been like the 12 seed because they would have snuck in. Arizona State would have moved up to 11, right?
Correct. Yes.
So it would have been Notre Dame versus Clemson.
Which Notre Dame would have.
Right, would have won. It would have been Ohio State, Arizona State.
Which I am glad that it was not. I'm not going to lie. I'm glad we didn't have to face them.
Right. Then it would have been Tennessee versus, I think, SMU and Indiana, Boise State. You could
say, so Indiana, I still think that Indiana would have won. I think Indiana would have won that game. And so you would have had like a completely different landscape and we wouldn't be having these, the wrong teams won in the second round because you wouldn't have had those top teams, those top bye teams. Boise didn't deserve a bye in the first round. I'm sorry. They certainly did not. Arizona State, there's the argument that they did because of how they played, but hindsight is 2020. We do have the benefit of hindsight. I think we've seen enough though that there should be tweaks to this coming season. I don't think that they should wait another season and see how this plays out. I think that there was enough to see this year that some major tweaks need to be made for the new format or for the upcoming format.
Yes, Steph, and it'll be very interesting because I think, if I recall correctly, Heather, the plan is in the next few years, they want to expand it out to 16. And I'm starting to think
love that. I don't love that, but it gives us more football. So what do? Do you give the top 8 teams a bye? Because you can't have it. You can't have these teams playing another game. You can't have these teams playing another game.
Well, I think at that point, the conference championships would go out the window.
Right.
I honestly think they would chuck those because you would have that extra playoff game for all these teams as opposed to the conference championship. And I know that it's about money. At the end of the day,
that's exactly what
it's all about the almighty dollar. It's the Benjamins, baby. And so I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I have loved this playoff. I loved it when the format went to the 4-team playoff, because if you think about it, Ohio State in both of these scenarios, they were done. They were done in the 4-team before the 4-team format. They would have been out. They had lost that. They had to win their way in by destroying Wisconsin in the conference championship to get into
49-0. Yeah. and even after they beat Wisconsin that badly, there were still the argument. There were still people saying, "Oh, they don't deserve to be in. They didn't deserve to be in." And I think that's where it was was such a big deal for us, because we had Cardale Jones, we had our 3rd string quarterback. Braxton, it was Braxton that had gone down, and then it was JT Barrett, and then it was Cardale Jones. So we're on our 3rd string quarterback, and there's no way no one's ever going to beat Alabama.
Yep.
And we did.
And I couldn't even believe it, Heather. I had forgotten until I started seeing highlights and things as we've gone on that we were losing in that game. We were. I forgot all about it. I'd wiped that from the memory because we won.
We did. I actually did a podcast with Pete yesterday, and we talked about top favorite moments of Ohio State. And mine was that game, because it was 85 yards to the heart of the South. But what people forget is that right before the first half ended, there was that pitch back from Cardale took the snap to Jalen Marshall. Jalen Marshall pitched it to Evan Spencer, and Evan Spencer threw that dime pass to Michael Thomas. And Michael Thomas had 1 foot in, and there was this much space left, but it was a touchdown. And that swung the whole momentum.
Yeah, it was just it was amazing back then. And I am absolutely thrilled that Ohio State is back in it again. And as we started to discuss here, just feeling so much more connected this time around than I did a few years ago when they played against Alabama. That just didn't feel the same. This has been a major thing, especially with what the Buckeyes have had to overcome. And I think that maybe it's a good segue, but I feel like
it's a good segue.
For both teams, this is, and again, I am not the first to say this. I heard this morning. Redemption. It is
for both teams. It absolutely is for both teams. So let's say some nice things about Notre Dame, because this is a different Notre Dame team. This is a different Notre Dame culture. And I dare say that Marcus has made this team more lovable, more likable, because before him, if you had said who are your most hated teams, there were several in there. There was obviously Michigan, Georgia for reasons because it was a targeting call, but we won't talk about that. And Notre Dame was always at the top of my list because the coaches, the culture, just the way that they acted, like Ohio State fans. But Marcus comes in and he completely changes how they're perceived, and they're a tough team now, but they're a likable tough team. So there is that redemption arc. And Ethan, do you agree? Dare I say that Notre Dame and Ohio State are pretty much everybody hopes that the power goes out and nobody wins this game. I feel like outside of our fan base, there aren't a whole lot of people who love us.
Oh, yeah.
Either team.
Now I get you. No, I completely agree. Although of course, everything I see, I think that people are more in Notre Dame's corner.
Oh, yeah, because
in Ohio State's because we've got a $20 million payroll. We bought our way. Now, listen, will you folks listen? I'm just going to go on my soapbox right now. Shut up. Okay, there are other
teams. Stop it with it. It's old. It's tired. It's old. Texas. all we heard about was Ohio State spent $20 million. No one had talked about how Texas spent $23 million. No one talked about how Oregon spent, I think it was $26 million or something like that.
Right.
And no one actually knows what Notre Dame spent because they're not a public school, so they don't have to disclose it. So I don't want to hear about that. And we spent money on keeping players.
Yes.
We didn't spend money on bringing new players in. Yes, we brought in a Caleb Downs. Yes, we brought in a Seth McLaughlin. Yes, we brought in a Quinshon Judkins. Who else? We kept our players. We didn't get this whole brand new roster. I'm going off. I'm getting this is what this is. Right. And this is why you guys want to follow Ethan and listen to us on the Going Nuclear, because this is the kind of stuff that we talk about too. This is what makes us nuclear. Nobody talks about any of that, though. They talk about Ohio State spent $20 million with zero context.
Yeah, no, it is. It's an uneducated talking point, which I feel badly for people that that's all they hear and they take that narrative and run with it. But I guess the bottom line is neither team is going to be beloved. And I will say this about Notre Dame. They had gone out of relevancy.
Yes, they had.
They really had. And you remember them back, their last title was
1988
under Coach Lou Holtz.
Yeah, Lou Holtz. Yeah.
Lou Holtz.
Holtz. Yes.
Yeah. Hey,
sorry. I'm sorry. He started it by talking all that trash.
But he is a Kent State guy, so we got to love him for that.
Okay. We'll give him that.
But no, I mean, they had fallen out of relevancy. They had a number of bad coaches. They had all those scandals with coaches and such. If you remember, and I can't remember the names of the guys. I could picture them, but I can't remember them. And then Brian Kelly leaves, and they get in.
And Brian Kelly left in like the sleaziest way possible. So even as somebody that doesn't, I hated Notre Dame even more because I couldn't stand Brian Kelly. But then he leaves in the sleaziest way possible to go, win at LSU.
Win championships. He can.
Yeah. How's that working out? How's that working out?
Right. And so Marcus Freeman has really brought the team back to a high level. Now, I will say this. Okay, their loss this year was to Northern Illinois at home, and I give them credit. They had to redeem themselves. This is their redemption story. They, as I heard the quote, they said basically since that loss, every week was a playoff game because they realized they had no margin for error. Right. By not being part of a conference, it both benefits them and hurts
them because they have to be perfect, especially if they make a mistake.
Right. Their actual, they only played 3 actual road games. Did you realize this?
Oh no, I didn't even realize that. That's.
They played at Texas A&M to open the season, a huge win. They did play a neutral site game at the Mercedes-Benz Dome, where they'll be tonight in Atlanta, against Georgia Tech. The game against Navy was a neutral site. They played at USC, big win there, and at Purdue. Okay, really? Yeah, Purdue. So they rarely play road games.
Yeah.
They're playing against, I'm sorry, a weak-ass schedule. I'm just going to say it.
Yes, it is. I wholly agree. And again, that goes with not being a part of a conference too, because let's look at the SEC and the Big Ten. SEC had a really down year this year, but if you look at the teams in the playoffs, SEC and Big Ten reign. And you do benefit from playing some of those tougher schedules. And I don't want to hear about Ohio State and, they played Akron, but they played Oregon, they played Penn State. And, looking back now, Michigan, I mean, that helped us. That loss helped us. They played against an elite defense in Michigan. So those kinds of games really shape your team and they really help you. I'd argue that Michigan game is what turned it around for us.
Yes, it did. And I think that's something that, we wanted to touch on here. And how did that Michigan game really impact Ohio State? How is that part of the redemption picture for Ryan Day? Losing that game, and now basically after that loss, I'm gonna admit it, I myself included was furious, right? I was like, you've got to fire this guy. How have you lost to Michigan 4 consecutive seasons? We are the vastly superior team. I don't care about cheating. I don't care whatever it is. How are you losing to these guys, especially this year? And he has an opportunity today. Not that he hasn't already done enough, but he has an opportunity here tonight to completely
redemption arc.
Yeah, wipe that all away. And I hear people who are, have you actually seen the people who are saying, I want to win over Michigan. I don't care about, are you kidding me? You trade.
I would not trade. I would lose. Listen, I hate losing to Michigan, and I've talked about this ad nauseum. I've talked about it. It ruined my entire day. It ruined my entire weekend. I canceled my plans, and then I thought I was over it on Monday, and my poor dad was still not over it. So he's texting me on Monday, getting me back, into that depressive state again. But I got over it, and the win over Tennessee, the crazy, curb stomp win over Tennessee. And then we went and we boat raced Oregon, and then we beat Texas. And each win takes you a little bit farther away from that. And I would trade beating Michigan every year for a national title. And if you ask Michigan fans, I would guarantee you that they would trade beating us for a national title every year, because ultimately at the end of the day, that's what you want. You want your team to be the best in the country. That's what you want.
Yep.
And a regular season loss isn't going to have any effect on that. If we win tonight, when we win tonight, we will be the national champions. We will not be that team. Michigan fans will, oh, you guys lost to us. Okay. But I do have some Michigan fans who are, mentioning, in some of my posts that they just love that the Big Ten is showing out. Like, they like to see the Big Ten showing out. So,
yeah, I think those people are quiet. They don't say a lot. I mean, I can't, I got to be honest. I was not in that group.
I wasn't last year. I was like a Washington Husky.
I don't care. I don't give a flying rat's patoozie. I will never. I know they're not rooting for Ohio State, but then if they say, okay, the Big Ten, but you know what? Forget that. I don't want to see my most hated rival succeed.
I don't either.
Screw that.
I agree. I completely agree. I completely agree.
Yeah. And so right here, right now, Ohio State has this opportunity in front of them. We were the first 4-team college football playoff champion. Ohio State has a chance to be the first.
To be the first
12.
Yes. Yeah. How fitting would that be? How fitting would that be? And I say, like, I joke about this, and I'm not joking about this. I don't think I've ever wanted to win more in my entire life than I do tonight. Because again, it's all of the things that we had to go through. And all of the things that the Ohio State team had to go through to get here, all of the debilitating injuries, all of the narrative. And, we forget that Ryan Day is still a human being. We forget that, because there's a lot of hatred with him, but we do forget that he is still a human being, and he's a good human being at that. And you know what? Marcus Freeman is a good human being too. So you can attack the team, but don't attack the person. Right. I hate that.
Well, okay. So there's a couple of things, and I was thinking about this morning, Heather. First of all, it's very interesting, the difference between college sports and professional sports and the level of anger that you see at least at a game.
Yeah.
And as the level and the stakes get higher, you see more.
The vitriol gets worse. Yeah.
Exactly. And I brought this up to you, and because you mentioned it, the Ryan Day, the human factor, the human element and aspect of it. Yeah. The fact that Jack Sawyer mentioned in an article in the Players Tribune.
Oh my God, that article! I wanted to cry. I'm like, why are strangers making me want to cry?
Yeah, I mean, all the things that Ryan Day and his family went through, his kids. The fact that after one of the losses to Michigan, he had to pull his kids out of school because not only were other kids, giving
their parents,
the kids were giving crap to Ryan Day's children. Teachers were giving crap to Ryan Day's children. That is over the line. I cannot believe educators, that other kids, they're morons. And
they don't know any better. Kids are stupid. Yeah, they hear it at home, and kids are terrible, and they're mean.
They are. But the fact that there were actually teachers that were doing that, and the fact that Ryan Day, and this goes out to all coaches in programs and in all sports and anybody who has to deal with this. Could you imagine, like, hey, I go to school with such and such child or such and such's brother or whatever it is, or sister, and their team lost, and that's who I root for. Well, I'm going to yell at them because their parent or brother or sister or whatever it is. That's crazy. It's crazy.
It's an actual mental illness. I think that they need to dig deep and realize there's something wrong.
It's just a game.
It is. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it is just a game. And I think that that's where we all need to live. Notre Dame, Ohio State, at the end of the day, we need to realize that it is just a game. And I am telling anybody right now, if you come, whether we win or lose, I'm not going to troll anybody. I'm not going to attack anybody. If you come at me, I'm blocking. I'm not engaging. I'm blocking. Don't do it. Don't do it. If you lose tonight, don't go after people. Don't insult them. Be sad. We can be sad that we lost, but you know what? The sun is going to rise again tomorrow. Well, not in Northeast Ohio. We never see the sun,
no.
But it'll still be daylight tomorrow.
It is true. It is very true. And I think for us as Ohio State certainly has had a lot of success.
They have.
But I think for us as Cleveland fans, where we can relate and bring that in, is we have seen a lot of losing and a lot of.
Yes, we have.
And for me, that brings a lot of humility, and you have to win with grace, and
yes. And lose with class. Win with grace and lose with class.
It's so important.
Yeah.
And I know, and I get a good chuckle, sure, when people are trolling other opponents, but I'll laugh. I'm like, you say which I don't agree with it necessarily.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Now,
if there's that fun, friendly banter, going back and forth, like Ohio State sucks, and talking about the team and talking about that. But where it gets bad is like when you start death threats to kids, death threats to coaches, or attacking. And I know that this is going to sound like a poor me. It's not. It genuinely isn't. But as a woman, I do get a lot of, your forehead's big, you're fat, you're stupid, you don't know what you're talking about, because that's it just is what it is. It just is what it is. Don't do that, is what I'm saying. Come at me and say your team sucked.
Right.
Okay. After the Michigan loss, I had Michigan fans who were like, how'd that work out? They had bookmarked a tweet that I had put out like a year ago, and they were coming back with receipts. And I took the wind out of their sails because I'm like, you guys are right. I was wrong. We did not show out. Our team didn't play. And then it was boring for them because I'm like, what am I going to do? Am I going to argue with you? But when you start to attack a person, that's where it gets ugly. So we went off on that little tirade. There's our soapbox, guys. Let's whatever fan base you are, even if you're not in a fan base, if you don't like Ohio State, lose class. If you do love Ohio State, win with grace. That's what you have to do.
Exactly. So who else has a redemption mode here? How about Trevion Henderson?
Oh yeah, Trevion Henderson. But you can argue that some of like a Jack Sawyer has a redemption arc, and you can argue that some of these kids that came back have this redemption arc. But Trevion, yes.
Well, look at what happened in that Texas game. He commits that unnecessary roughness,
which was completely out of character.
Right. Did you notice that the two guys on the tight end for Texas and then Trevion they both had the eye black with scripture on it, and they were both getting called for for whatever nonsense. That was kind of funny.
It was the irony, but that should tell you like something went south, because they're not normally like that. I want to know. I know what happened with Trey. I saw the play where he got kicked in the nethers. So someone probably was doing some of this.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I saw. I don't remember getting kicked in the nether. Yeah. But I saw obviously the exchange, and he needed to keep his cool. The guy for Texas, what was he thinking?
I don't know.
Why? That is part of again, this is me being an old get off my lawn guy, an old fart. I'm like, will you stop pointing and doing?
Yes.
You are doing your, essentially, I know, and more so now, you're doing your job. Make the play, go back to the huddle, and live to play another down.
Yeah, but that was a weak call. It doesn't matter if it was a weak call or not. It doesn't matter if we agree with the penalty or not. It's a penalty.
Right.
So it's by the letter of the law. It's a penalty. So whether we agree with it or not, I don't like the pass interference call. It's still the rule.
Right. It's like, hey, I was only going 5 miles an hour over the speed limit, and you wrote me a ticket anyway. Well, you
still broke the law, right?
And Trevion Henderson, he has that boneheaded penalty, which derails the drive. And at that point, Ohio State
shifted the momentum. That did shift the momentum because we were going to score. We were driving.
We were moving the ball, driving, and on our way, and had a chance to go up 14-0. That happens. Texas regains control. It's 7-7, but then he turns it around.
And he turns the Jets on. The sweep, I'm like, what was that? So do you remember that? I mean, Ethan, I'm watching this unfold, and I'm like, oh, he's got blockers. I get up, and I'm like, he's got blockers. And then all of a sudden, he turns the Jets on.
Exactly. So Trevion Henderson, he redeems himself there. You talked about Jack Sawyer. Will Howard, he has been heavily criticized. And at one of the most crucial moments, and we could talk about a lot from this season, but he got vilified after the Oregon game when he slid and time ran out. He got vilified in the Michigan game. He got whatever it is. But 4th and short, they called his number and he made the play. And we talked about it. Arguably, him falling down was the best
thing that happened because it burned time off the clock.
It took another 2 minutes and 40 seconds off the clock.
The 20-yard line said, we're going to fix this. We're going to trip you. And
exactly. He really needs to get some better. I don't know. He's got to work on his balance a little bit. Okay.
He does. I was like, he's going to go. And then he just ass over apple cart. Done.
Exactly. Jim Knowles, he's been heavily criticized. The defense.
Which I don't understand. I maybe call me a homer, but Jim Knowles has done a lot with what he's taken that team. He took that team from almost worst to almost best.
Right. No, I mean, they're first in defense in TV. I mean, it's 1 versus 2 defense. And
they're one.
Right. Ohio State is 1, Notre Dame 2.
Yeah.
And then again, Ohio State's defense in the biggest moment, the goal line stand with Texas on the doorstep, chance to tie it up. And they make the play on first down and get in their head. And Sarkisian, I know he said, well, we didn't block it right and on the second play. But that whole first down set it in motion.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, we can't go up the middle. We're going to try and go outside.
We're going to and then they pitched it back on 3rd down. What?
It was 2nd down. They went to that outside play. That was the 7-yard line.
Well, the outside play. Yeah.
3rd down was Ewers in the pocket and gets tipped by Sawyer, and then 4th down as the soup and score. But that whole first thing goes in motion, sets in motion because of first down and the amazing play. What did they say after the game? Give us an inch and we'll defend it.
We'll defend it. Give us an inch and we'll defend it. But that pitch back on 2nd down, it didn't make any sense to me because you have Ohio State statistically has been one of the best schools for goal line defenses. So you're going to pitch it back 5 yards and then lose another 2. I didn't understand that call.
Right. Why?
And I get it. We didn't block right. It's probably a bad call.
Right. You mean to tell me you can't.
You're on the 1-yard line. Run the damn ball like 4 times.
Exactly. You can't get 1 yard. If you can't get 1 yard from the 1-yard line, and we've seen it happen. Remember when the Browns had 8 plays from the goal line a few years ago? That was
I do remember that. I do remember that.
The bottom line is it's not as easily done as it is said, right? So then you've got guys who stepped up in the game as well, Heather, that we might need. We'll talk about it. And we might need them tonight with Abuka, Tate, Carnell Tate, G. Scott, etc.
Carnell Tate
stepped up huge.
He was huge for the Texas. He was huge for that Texas game because they had triangled Jeremiah Smith.
Yes.
So Texas didn't necessarily have 3 covering him, but they had 3 lasered on him. So they had the double coverage and they had the 3rd guy at point who was ready to come in and defend. So Carnell Tate stepped up.
He did. He dropped that pass on the first drive, but then he came back late. He made some key plays.
He made some huge plays.
He did. And you have to love the fact that he has the confidence, and Will Howard has the confidence and faith in him to go back to him. And so then you talk about that for Ohio State. And as we talked about for Notre Dame, they were left for dead after that Northern Illinois loss. And then even let's just go to the semifinal against Penn State. They were down 10-0. Then in the fourth quarter, they fall behind 24-17 with just 7:55 to go. They drive down, they get it tied, and then they win it at the horn, basically.
Yeah, you could argue though that Notre Dame, and this isn't taking anything away from Notre Dame because they played really well, but you can argue that Notre Dame didn't win as much as Penn State gave it away because that interception by Aller was horrific.
That was
I watched that play unfold and I'm like, what the F just happened? What just happened? Did he literally throw it away in the middle of the field?
Yeah, that was complete duty. And it really showed some of the deficiencies for Penn State, the fact that they have no wide receivers.
Correct.
And all their offense was the tight end, the running backs, and I mean they got it. They have holes in their team, very good defense, but there are definite deficits, as we talked about numerous times. But Notre Dame took advantage, and they did. They did. They overcame.
Well, and not to rehash, but for those of you who don't know, Penn State didn't have a completion to a wide receiver in that game. Not one. There was not one completed pass to a wide receiver. So that was, I mean, okay.
I can't believe you can't. Can you not scheme somebody open? Can you not make a pass? It's crazy.
One time, not even once. And yes, Notre Dame has a very good secondary. Notre Dame has very strong safeties, but you can't tell me that you didn't feel like challenging them one time. It was terrible. That was James Franklining.
Yes, exactly. And so that brings us to it. That's a great point that you bring up about the defense of Notre Dame and their defensive backfield, their safeties. We're going to be watching that. That's the matchup, or the a big thing to watch tonight is what is Notre Dame going to do defensively? You've got people coming out that say we played man-to-man defense all year.
I know. You can't play man-to-man though against Ohio State, I don't think. Well, but you can't change your identity if you're Notre Dame. You can't change your identity.
And there has to be a balance there of, and I've talked to coaches about this, of doing what you do well versus changing your strategy based upon what others do. Now, they can take some hints from that. Al Golden has been a very good defensive coordinator.
So good. Yeah.
And they did it. And we talked about this, you and I, because I had heard this comment about last year's Ohio State Notre Dame game in the regular season. Those are very different teams. I know you're talking about Marvin Harrison and Jeremiah Smith.
But you had Kyle McCord.
Yes, it's two vastly different teams. The defense is far better this year.
It is.
I think that the opportunity, I appreciate Al Golden, but we're going to have to see if he schemes. I've heard people talk already that he might try and throw a lot of looks, and maybe it won't be just man. Maybe he'll just try and confuse Will a little bit, but Will has to just be smart. Do not make the mistake. Don't get baited into making
that mistake.
Right.
To me, the key to this game is is interesting because each defense their strength is the opposing team's offensive strength. So Notre Dame's strength is their secondary, their safeties, and Ohio State's strength is our passing game. Notre Dame's strength is our run game. Our defensive strength is our front five. Our front five, even front seven, you can say. So that's going to be very curious how that plays out. Can we stop that run? Can we stop Riley Leonard? Can we stop Jeremiah Love? Can they stop, Jeremiah Smith? Can they stop Emeka Ibuka? Can they stop Carnell Tate? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know if they can. I don't know if they can.
I don't know. And let me throw this out there to you. So this is some of the storylines, I think one of the two biggest things for Notre Dame is injuries. And those two injuries are, firstly, their offensive lineman, Anthony Knapp, is out. They're starting a freshman at left tackle who hasn't played this season.
Right.
That could spell trouble.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then also the question is, what is the health of Jeremiah Love in the run?
He says that he's at 100%.
Yeah,
he's at 100%. I agree. Because he was only at like 10%, it looked like, the way he was playing. And I don't know if 2 weeks is enough to get you at, well, not even 2 weeks. Yeah, I guess it's
less than 2 weeks.
Less than 2 weeks. Yeah. I don't know if that's enough to get you at 100%.
Right. And so if Ohio State can control up front, that is going to make it life very hard for Notre Dame. And I don't know what they have to fall back on.
I don't either.
Right, their passing game is not as strong. Now,
Well,
they
do have Jadarian Price. They do have Jadarian Price to back up, where he has not been for running back, but he's not been like a Jeremiah Love. But like we were talking about earlier, he did lead the regular season in yards after contact, which thank you to Mike for that stat. But it's a different defense. This is definitely the best defense that Notre Dame is going to come up against.
Yes, and I think that the tackling is going to be key. Guys,
right. You can't have those missed.
Right. That was our problem in games in the past.
Yeah.
Is we weren't tackling well. Let's talk about it. Let's look at who we played in the playoffs. Remember that, in fact, Tennessee was very much about the run game. And Nico,
we shut it down.
Nico Iamaleava, he can run, he's mobile, and we shut him down. Shut down Dylan Sampson. So I think we've seen, and he's more athletic than Riley Leonard. He's not as veteran, not as seasoned as Leonard.
No, but he's definitely more athletic. And there were a lot of people who were upset that Dylan Sampson didn't get Heisman consideration.
Right, exactly.
So that good.
Right. So I think we've got that. And the way that Jim Knowles has deployed Caleb Downs and Lathan Ransom.
Lathan Ransom is vastly under talked about. He is vastly under talked about. He is so you want to talk about the sexy players like the Jack Sawyers, like the Caleb Downs, like the
JTT, Simon and JTT.
Yeah, you want to talk about those players, but Lathan Ransom, and I don't know if you watched College Game Day last week. Nick Saban called him Lathan Ransom. Close.
Oh, but how many people call them? What is it? They can't say Quinshon Judkins.
No, they call him
Junkins.
Quinshon Judkins. Yeah.
I'm like, guys,
it's not that hard.
Well, it's not that hard.
But where's the N?
You are paid professionals. Very well paid professionals. Can you get the names right?
Right. Especially the easy ones.
It isn't. It's not that hard. Yeah. It really isn't. So I think go ahead, Heather. Go ahead.
Well, no. So Lathan is that guy is doing everything quiet. He's doing his job, and he's not being flashy about it, and he's not getting the attention about it. But my God, is he padding the stats? Is he padding those stat sheets? And then he's doing the things that aren't showing up on the stats, where he's getting in their way. He's tripping them up. He's not getting the credit for those tackles, but he's really involved. He's getting pressure. He's guarding. So there's all of those things that he's doing.
Yeah, he was involved in that play, that ill-fated toss play to the outside.
Yes, he was.
Because it was Downs initially breaking, it was like Ransom, Downs, and they both did a great job. So it is, as you said, he is not being talked about near enough. And what you have to love about this team is that they are, I would say, from the outside looking in, they seem pretty selfless.
They do seem really selfless. And you know who else I'm loving is Sonny Styles. I'm loving Sonny Styles. Like he's been playing. And let's talk about Jermaine Matthews. Okay, so last against Texas, Denzel Burke, I think, only saw like 28 snaps, I think it was. And Jermaine saw the double the snaps. It was like 52 or something like that. And he shut them down. So you have these players who are doing everything that you want me to sit on the bench because he covers better. I'm going to have a headset on and I'm going to be, helping you, and I'm going to be coaching you up. And you want to share, a sack with me? Let's share that. And you want to split a tackle for loss? Let's do that. They're doing all of the little things. One of the things that I love the most is how wide receivers at Ohio State are coached to be involved in every single play. Do we not have the best blockers?
Yes, absolutely. It's amazing. That's part of the deal. It's not, you see the best players out there blocking. You see Jeremiah Smith. You see Emeka Egbuka out there. Yep. It could be like, I'm not blocking. I'm a diva. I'm not going to do that.
Nope. And they're like, I'm going to get my body on you. And then when we're passing the ball, you're going to see a Travion or a Quinshon. You're going to see a Quinshon throwing their body out, and they're going to be blocking for those guys. They're going to be helping with the pass coverage. So you see them again doing the little things that don't show up in the stat sheets.
Exactly. You really have to appreciate that. You watch these guys, and again, selfless. They really are, as much as, again, we go back to one of our first topics talking about Ryan Day and how scrutinized he was. They feed off of him,
Mm-hmm.
and he's a good person. I saw there was a whole thing about there was a photo of Marcus and Ryan. Did you see this?
I did see that.
And the person commenting about Ryan Day versus Freeman, and someone's retorting, it looks like a guy. Now, am I correct? What, he had his father or stepfather?
His father committed suicide.
Yeah. I mean, there's more to it, and
there is more to it,
and that's the type of person he is, and the players feed off of that.
Absolutely, because he cares. He absolutely cares about their mental health. He cares about how they feel, and to your point about Ohio State and the locker room and how close they are and how selfless they are, I do feel like Marcus has changed Notre Dame's team, because they look like they actually love each other, and they look like they're more cohesive than they've ever been, which it shows on the field. It shows when they're playing. If you genuinely love the guys that you're with, it's like that. You have to love what you do, and you have to love who you work with, and they do.
They do, and I mean, you look at Marcus, obviously coming, from his playing days at Ohio State. And did he start? Am I right? Did he start under Tress? And
he did, yeah. He played. Marcus played from 2000. No, he played. Well, yeah, probably 2004 to 2008. So he was right at the end of Jim's
Tress and the beginning of Urban.
Yeah. He was right at the beginning of that. Like, he was right in there, because Urban
somewhere in that vicinity. May have all been under Tress. I'd have to look back, because I can't remember when that all went.
It might have been because it was 2000. Yeah, it was all under Tressel. It was all under Tressel.
And look at Coach Tressel and what he started to build at Ohio State. He took over for John Cooper, who we have compared Ryan Day to, and when it comes to beating Michigan. But he took over for John Cooper, and he built a foundation of getting the in-state recruits, and it was more than just the football side of things. It was the strategy. It was the most boring football you've ever seen.
Right. But it worked. It was effective. It was effective for that, especially for that time frame, because really the only conference that time that was speed was the SEC. And that was they were just kind of starting to do that spread speed. Right. But I remember when Jim Tressel came on, he said, you're going to be proud of these kids on the field, and you're going to be proud of these kids off the field. And he made sure, because if you look back now, the worst scandal was our players were getting tattoos. And now, they can get whatever they want. So that's a story for you. But you could argue that we owe Terrell Pryor for that, because we got Urban Meyer. So, because Tressel had to take the fall. Someone had to take the fall for that, and Tress did.
He did, but did he not also? So you talk about getting so we got Herb, but let's see. And you said Terrell Pryor. Terrell Pryor was recruited, though, by Tress, wasn't he?
He was. What I'm saying is you can thank Terrell Pryor for the Urban Meyer
era. Yes. Sorry.
You can thank Terrell Pryor for the Urban Meyer era, because he went out and got those tattoos.
And he sold his gold pants.
Yeah, he did. He sold his gold pants, and all those players did. So Tressel had to take the fall for that, because he didn't have institutional control or whatever. So he had to take the fall for that.
Isn't it funny how he is remembered? He's not remembered for that scandal. He's remembered for beating Michigan and turning the tide of that.
And he's remembered for
winning a national championship.
Yeah, for beating Goliath. He's remembered for that. Yeah,
it's funny how winning makes you forget.
Winning fixes everything. Yeah,
sure does.
And I think that's where we're going to be with Ryan Day. Even if I know this is going to taste like vinegar, but even if we lose tonight, Ryan Day has had the biggest redemption arc out of, and everybody loves a good redemption. Everybody loves that villain, and you messed up and we're going to trash you. But then everybody loves to celebrate you when you fix it, when you come back on the other side. And I think that Ryan Day is back on the other side of this.
He really is. And it's kind of crazy, because when you think about those types of stories, a lot of times we're not talking about just a loss or whatever, or bad play. We're talking about major scandals. Like,
Well, right.
and then you still, and so to forget, and I say forget,
Right.
a loss versus forgetting what bad acts somebody did off the field.
Right.
I was just having this discussion with people about, like, do you think fans of the Steelers cared about what happened to Ben Roethlisberger and the accusations when he was winning 2 Super Bowls? Nope.
No.
Do you think people in LA cared about Kobe Bryant and his accusations?
No.
Nope. I mean, it's amazing. You win and people just go do 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 do. I mean, in fact, Jim Brown, he didn't have a perfect.
He's a terrible human. He's a terrible person. He had a terrible, maybe not a terrible person. I don't know. Because I don't know.
He had his issues. There were
But he had a lot of issues that no one talks about because he was so great and he won.
Yeah, he did. And so he's looked at as a legend. And it's just one of those things where the winning and people will forgive and forget.
Everything.
And but in this case, I don't, the guy didn't do anything wrong. And it is such a great possible redemption story. But you know what? As we sit here and talk, other than the fact that I hate losing and I don't like to see other teams and their Notre Dame honks talk, if you have to lose to somebody, I suppose losing to Marcus Freeman is not the worst thing.
Right. It takes the sting out. We're not losing to an SEC team. We're kind of losing to a program similar. In a
way, yeah. I mean, it's just like I hated losing to Dabo because I just don't like.
Oh my God, that was the worst. Like, ugh.
Yeah, you feel sick. I think I threw up.
You do feel icky about it. You feel icky about it. Yeah.
Right. And so I losing to that type of a person, and I shouldn't say as a person. I don't know him as a person.
Whatever, as a football coach. Yeah, for persona, right? Yeah.
You feel like I don't appreciate that guy very much and the things he has to say publicly.
No.
But I have nothing against Marcus Freeman. It would kind of be like losing. Who's another guy who I really wouldn't want to lose to? Lane Kiffin.
Ooh, I can't stand Lane Kiffin.
He is such a pompous ass.
Yes, he is. Yes, and with nothing to show for it.
How many places has he gone and not done squat? And then he cried about Ole Miss not being in. Are you kidding me?
Right. Like, sir, you guys lost. So, yeah. Yeah, he's definitely one that I wouldn't. Yeah, it wouldn't bother me to. I mean, is it going to bother me if we lose? Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be really upset about it. But it's not going to be as painful losing to an Ohio State guy. Marcus he's pretty likable. So,
but what's the narrative going to be afterwards? Even though it's not going to happen. Oh, that's it. Fire Ryan Day. Go get Marcus Freeman. We need a winner. We don't need this guy.
Right, which they're not going to get Ryan or Marcus because but that is going to be the argument. Like, guys, Marcus signed a very long extension with Notre Dame, and I'm not going to tolerate the fire Ryan Day stuff. I will argue back with people on that one because at this point, we're not there. We're not there. The guy took you to the national title game when we shouldn't have been because that Michigan game was putrid. We looked horrific. We didn't know what a forward pass was. And then all of a sudden we're scoring 700 points a game in the postseason.
Right. And he admitted his fault. He
did. He said, I tried to play tough. Like this is the onus is on me.
He said, I screwed up.
Yeah.
How nice and refreshing is that? I know that we yell about this as Browns fans. Why don't they admit they made a mistake with Deshaun Watson? Why don't they just come out and say it? Mm-hmm. And everybody wants that. We know it's not going to happen from the owner.
Right. But it just feels so because then you can just say, you know what? You're human.
Exactly.
It happens.
It does.
So let's close this out. We're coming up on the hour. So let's close this out. Let's just get give me just a couple takeaways to the game and then tell me how you think it's going. Takeaways for the game and then tell me how you think it's going to end.
All right. I think that Ohio State should look to jump out early. The longer this game stays close, which is what Notre Dame will need to do, the better their chances are. I heard this earlier, and they're right, and I looked at the stats and stuff. The special teams is dangerous for Notre Dame. You kick that ball out of the end zone and out of bounds on the punts. You do not give them an opportunity to turn the game on a special teams play.
Correct.
You allow them to block a kick. if we're kicking extra points, I'm not so concerned, but I don't want to be in a field goal kicking contest here.
No, because we'll lose that.
Yeah, we're although fielding, I'm not gonna.
He's been okay in the postseason.
He's come back. There's no elements here.
No, correct.
There's no elements.
Right.
Ohio State has the more talented roster, but it's going to be about heart and composure, and whichever team executes better is going to come out with a win. And for Ohio State, again, that's going to come out with they need to jump on it early. If Notre Dame is going to try to play man defense, the O-line needs to hold up. They need to get the ball to Jeremiah Smith, and then you hit him with Trevion and Quinshawn, and that's just a two-headed monster there. The defense of Caleb Downs is great. I think for Notre Dame, they are going to need to control the ball, melt the clock. They are going to have to just be very staunch defensively, and they would be best suited to try to keep the ball out of Jeremiah Smith's hands and make Ohio State have to grind it out like they did against Texas.
Yeah.
Ultimately, this isn't just me being a homer, and with my heart, I really honestly think Ohio State is going to be victorious tonight. I wouldn't put it as a blowout. I know that the odds makers say it's they're 8.5-point favorites. I don't care about that. All I care about is putting having more points than the other team and getting a W. I'm picking Ohio State to win. I think they have enough and they are focused enough to do it, but I'm not overconfident. I think Notre Dame has a very good team and they're very well coached.
Yeah, you said one of the things that I actually have on my list of takeaways is to control the clock, that Notre Dame has to control that clock. And the Ohio podcast, if Ohio State gets up by 2 scores with our defense, it's over. I wholly agree with you. And I've said that because Notre Dame doesn't have the offensive power to come back from that big of a deficit. So I think that Notre Dame needs to keep their identity. They are a man coverage. I think that that's where they need to go first. I think that they need to just run first and see if that works. Don't try to get fancy. Don't try to do something that you're not great at, and that's passing. Those deep passes, you're not going to get those. They need to have a very unequal time of possession. You cannot put the ball in our hands. You can't do it. Do not let us have sustained drives. And then, use Riley Leonard, use those quarterback sneaks. I think that's going to be key. And for me, for Ohio State needs to do 2 things. We need to have our linebackers, our DBs, zero in on that run. We have to stop that run because if we make them pass, they're going to be wildly uncomfortable. And that's where they're not going to have success. And then we need to figure out how our receivers can get separation. So if Jeremiah Smith has double coverage, let's call those plays for Carnell. Let's call those deep balls for Emeka Egbuka, because Emeka Egbuka he gets lost in the shuffle, I think, a little bit just because of Jeremiah Smith. And he's got phenomenal hands and he's got really great speed. So I think you're going to have to see Emeka and Carnell get very involved in this game. I think I'm with you. I think Ohio State does win because we do have the more talented team, but we have to stop the penalties and we have to not beat ourselves. I don't think it's going to be a blowout necessarily, but I actually do have a little bit of a higher scoring game. I have us at 31 and them at 17. I do think we win by 2, but I don't know. That's just me being a homer.
And it's all right, and that's okay. And that is okay. And I don't think we mentioned this. So this is Ohio State going for its first title since 2014. This was this will be its 9th. Notre Dame going for its 14th title, the first since 1988 under Paul.
88,
the last time they were in the championship, it was the BCS with, I believe, Manti Te'o.
It was
destroyed.
They got absolutely mollywopped. I mean, they got mollywopped. And what people remember from that is Manti Te'o and his
getting catfish.
Yes, exactly.
Poor guy.
I know. And I incidentally off subject, you guys need to watch that documentary on Netflix because man, did the media they did that kid wrong. They did him wrong.
They did. Boy.
So So I think we're definitely in agreement. On my, I did a poll, and let me just look and see what the poll is right now. I think we are at, obviously, Ohio State is yeah, 68% of the people have Ohio State winning today. So of course it's probably too, because I attract mostly Ohio State fans, but I think that most of the country has Ohio State winning, but wants Notre Dame to win.
No, yeah, that's quite possible. We are the Goliath in this case, as you said,
Mhm.
and certainly there will be people that want to see the David win in Notre Dame. I mean, they'll sit there and say they've got touchdown Jesus, and I'm going to say, well, we've got Brutus. They've
We
got
do, we do. We had. I saw a great meme, and we can end it on this one. It said Catholics versus draft picks.
yes, I have seen that as well. Very good, very good. Yep, absolutely.
So, well, thank you everybody for joining us. I'm going to give Ethan the floor a minute, and just to get a little bit personal, Ethan and I have done a lot of work together. Ethan has become a very, very great friend to me. So I am being a little bit homerish and I am being biased on this, but you guys need to listen to some of the podcasts that Ethan does, because the guy was born for this. He is exceptional at this, and you're not going to listen to his podcast and be bored. So please, 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 please give my very good friend Ethan a follow here. And Ethan, tell us where we can follow you, and tell us about your podcast network.
All right. Well, again, thank you very much, Heather. And you have become a very near and dear friend as well. And again, wink, wink, nod, nod. Look forward to what we've got coming down the pike.
Yep.
But you can follow me on my Twitter handle, my personal account at egreen4325. You can follow the podcast page, Twitter account, Going Nuclear CLE. You can check it out on YouTube. Go to typing Going Nuclear CLE. You'll find us there. Going Nuclear is now part of the Fanatical Elves Network, a subsidiary of the Fans First Sports Network. And we've got a lot of great things going on. And hopefully tomorrow we'll be doing a victory podcast. We are scheduled for 8:00, so stay tuned. And hopefully we will be having a big celebration. I've even got something special planned if this goes. I'm working on a musical guest. Okay.
Oh, okay. So we have to win. I can't wait. I can't wait.
We're working on something here. It'll be memorable. Let me just say that. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for supporting Heather. Heather, thank you for being so kind to me. Without getting mushy and teary-eyed here, I can't tell you how nice it is to hear those kind words from someone who doesn't have to say it. And this weekend, I got recognized for the 17 years I've been broadcasting women's basketball at Randolph-Macon. It was something that was just impromptu, that was said by the president of the college and by the coach of the team and players' parents. And so this is something I love doing. I enjoy bringing the information to people in an entertaining fashion, and doing this with people that I've had the great opportunity to work with, including but not limited to Heather and many others. Heather is very well prepared. She does a great job. So please continue to support Heather in all of her endeavors. I appreciate you if you follow me, if you give me, give the podcast a follow on YouTube, on X. We're working on good things. Got some big things lined up here in the near future. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you. And 2025 is going to be a really great year. Don't forget to follow me, Love Buckeyes on X. That's my personal account. You'll see all of my nonsensical things. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube at Bougie Sports, and check us out online at bougiesports.net. And if you're not, please give both of us a follow. And Ethan, it's just really nice to collaborate and to now call you my friend. So thank you again for a great show. Thank you to everybody for listening. Whoever you're rooting for tonight, let's remember to be kind. Let's remember to be good people, and go Bucks.
Go Bucks.